Welcome to Oxford News This Week. I'm Elgin Nichols.
And I'm Terry Stiles. In this week's local news, a recent Oxford grad was lost in a tragic accident. And meet the new Chamber of Commerce Executive Director.
Stay tuned and learn more about these stories and others. The Oxford News begins right now. Oakland County deputies were called to Granger Road, Oxford, to what turned out to be a deadly motorcycle accident. Witnesses told officers that Oxford High School graduate Tyler Fluke, age 18, was practicing a stunt on his motorcycle when he collided into the back of a parked pickup truck. Tyler was wearing a helmet, but during the impact it flew off. He was quickly transported to the local hospital where he passed away the following day.
Oakland County Sheriff deputies spent time this week settling a domestic dispute which turned into a fist fight. When an Oxford man was refused entrance into his mother's home, he began shouting and pounding on her doors and windows. An additional man tried to stop the pounding and tried to get the son to vacate the property, and that's when the son began the fist fight. Officers were called and arrested the son on assault charges and an outstanding warrant. He was taken to the Oakland County Jail.
Officers were called to a retail store on North Lapeer Road on a complaint of attempted theft. The store security officers observed a man and a woman concealing store products under their clothing. The couple checked out items from their cart using the U-Scan system, but attempted to leave without paying for the concealed items. When the sheriff deputy confronted the couple, the woman pulled the items from her clothing and threw it at the store security officer. The woman then tried to walk away, but the couple were promptly arrested for retail fraud, and in addition, the woman was ticketed for disorderly conduct.
A local Oxford woman alerted police that a neighbor had withdrawn over $2,000 from her deceased husband's bank account. While her husband was alive, he gave the neighbor a debit card so she could purchase groceries and other items for the home. After the man's death, the neighbor continued to withdraw funds from the account. The case is waiting further action and recourse from the wife.
Oxford has a newly hired Chamber of Commerce Executive Director. She is Lisa Renault. She and her family are longtime residents of Addison Township. Lisa brings with her more than 15 years in experience, event planning and marketing, and has worked with many nonprofit organizations. Renault says that she will focus on improving communication relations with the business community. For those interested in joining the Oxford Chamber, you can get more information by contacting the Oxford Township or the village offices. Congratulations, Lisa.
Well, it looks like Cemetery Hill project completion date has changed, in part due to rainy weather, but also because county officials want to see additional drainage on the township side of the hill. Originally scheduled for completion by July 17th, the project is now looking at July 26th, if all goes well. And yes, both of the detours on West Burdick streets will be closely guarded by local and county police, so do not try to save time by going too fast or dodging the barricades, because it's going to cost you over $200 and 3 points against your driving record. So be careful, please.
Although the 4th of July festivities are over, some people are still shooting fireworks, and Fire Chief Pete Schultz wants to remind folks that Michigan Fireworks Safety Act is part of the Oxford Village and Township ordinances too. Schultz says it is legal to light fireworks the day before, the day of, and the day after a holiday. But even on those days, ordinances don't allow for fireworks from midnight to 8 a.m., and those regulations apply to other holidays throughout the year as well. You should understand too, if your fireworks cause damage to someone else's property, you could face up to 90 days in jail and a $5,000 fine. Serious injury or death caused by your fireworks can land you in prison from 5 to 15 years, along with some nasty fines. So stick to the rules and keep everyone safe. Good advice from the chief.
As in previous years, local residents enjoyed this year's successful 6th annual Seymour Lake celebration. Kids, parents, and grandparents enjoyed carnival rides, games, and food, and live music while relaxing with the family. Again this year, the fireworks began with a bang at around 10 p.m., and they were spectacular. A great big attaboy goes out to our Parks and Recs Director, Ron Davis, and Lauren Jacobson, and the hardworking team of staff and volunteers from the Parks and Recs.
Well, Terry,
Quite a night.
what's going on? And I hear
Oh,
there's
my
beaver
goodness.
trouble in your backyard.
I'm telling you what, I love living where we're at, but I've lost 3 trees in the last week, so I'm on the muscle about beavers this week. And I was just saying last night, I got to get something to protect the rest of the trees around here. And I got up this morning and down goes my little fruit tree. I don't know if there's any way to transplant beavers or what, but I know he's a pretty popular guy in our area, so if anything happens to him, it wasn't me.
Shouldn't there have been
I'm
a tip
telling
out
you.
before you bought the property? No one else has trees. You're the only one
I
with
know.
trees.
Next week it's going to look like a desert oasis on this little canal, but I don't know what to do, and I'm really frustrated today.
Well, be nice to your beaver. That might be the.
I will try. Either that or he's going to end up mittens. I don't know. To change the subject, so I don't get myself in trouble, I have met Lisa Renault from the Chamber, and she's delightful. I think that there's a lot of people in this community that are going to be refreshed by how ready and willing she is to help out. And she's just a good girl. I think that people need to contact her.
Well, she's not unfamiliar with the area.
No,
Certainly.
she's not.
From Madison,
Being a
so-
resident, yeah, that's really nice.
So it's great to have all this enthusiasm come on board.
And she's an enthusiastic girl. Give her a call just to go say hi, stop by the office. She's a sweetheart. And that's it for this week's news. If you'd like to learn more about our stories, these and others, stop by your local stores and pick up a copy of the Oxford Leader newspaper.
And coming up next on OCTV, more news. Oxford local sports with Andy Curtis and Oxford school news with John Oetjens. Dave Kenny with his Auto Talk and Science in the News also.
This is Oxford News This Week, and I'm Terry Stiles.
And I'm Elgin Nichols. Remember, always be kind to your friends and neighbors, and thanks for watching.
You are watching the Michigan American Legion's Station of the Year for the 5th year in a row. Oxford Community Television.
Welcome to this edition of Auto Talk. I'm Dave Kenny, and these stories are taken from the publication Automotive News. In our first story, Chrysler Group says its new supercharged 6.2-liter V8 Hellcat engine has been certified at 707 horsepower and 650 pounds-feet of torque, topping the most powerful versions of the SRT Viper, the Chevrolet Corvette, and the Ford Mustang. The engine is to debut at dealerships later this year in the 2015 Dodge Challenger SRT and will later be used in a supercharged Dodge Charger SRT. When it arrives, it will be the most powerful V8 that the automaker has ever produced. When it introduced the 2015 Challenger SRT in May, Dodge said it would come with 2 key fobs. The black key fob limits the driver to a reduced engine output of 500 horsepower, while the red key fob unlocks the Hellcat's engine's full horsepower and torque. The refreshed Challenger is due to arrive in dealerships in the 3rd quarter, the company said, and I'm sure a lot of people can't wait for that one. And at Google, in the age of Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, Google's new in-car interface for Android smartphones relies on a vestige of 20th century technology, a plastic USB cable. The physical link between the smartphone and the car might seem like a step back from the cutting edge, but it's actually a sign of a new strategy that the smartphone and car companies are employing to combat distracted driving. Governments have mainly tried to fight distracted driving with laws banning handset use or texting in the car, laws that are widely flouted. Google and its partners from the auto industry are taking an approach that's more carrot than stick. That's where the hardwired connection comes in. With the phone leashed to the center console, the car not only takes control of the phone's functions, it effectively grabs the phone out of the driver's hands by locking the screen. This isn't going to take care of 100% of the ability to be distracted, says David Strickland, who was an administrator of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration until January. If people are going to make an unsafe decision, they're going to make an unsafe decision. But if you offer music, messaging, and information services through the vehicle safely, you've created an environment where people will be willing to plug in their phone and not be so distracted. Android Auto, unveiled at Google's annual developer conference in San Francisco, is the first product of the Open Automotive Alliance, a consortium that includes Audi, General Motors, Honda, Hyundai, Google, and chipmaker NVIDIA Corporation. Google signaled at the conference that it's trying to find a sweet spot, offering just enough features to persuade drivers to set aside their phones, but not so many that it creates a dangerous new distraction. Even though it's unsafe and in many cases illegal, people use their phones while driving, Patrick Brady, director of engineering at Android, told software developers. There's got to be a better way, he says. Android Auto allows drivers, that is, to make phone calls, send text messages, navigate with Google Maps, and play music from streaming services such as Pandora and Spotify. It mainly uses voice controls, which Strickland says is a wise approach. NHTSA research suggests that talking on a hands-free cell phone is not particularly risky. The risk mainly lies in handling the phone and looking away from the road. But voice controls aren't foolproof. Studies have shown drivers can handle only so much cognitive workload before their driving suffers. Google's strategy is shared by arch rival Apple Incorporated, whose new CarPlay interface also requires a phone to be plugged into the car and locked down. And at Chrysler, well, Chrysler Group has expanded a recall over ignition switch issues similar to that prompted General Motors to recall Chrysler by nearly 700,000 vehicles following an investigation by U.S. safety regulators. Chrysler says it will recall an additional 695,957 units of the Chrysler Town & Country and Dodge Grand Caravan minivans and Dodge Journey crossovers from the 2008 and 2010 model years because of an ignition switch that may slip from the run to accessory mode, shutting off the engine and deactivating airbags. The statement cited an abundance of caution. The affected vehicles have ignition switches that could over-travel after being started and get stuck between the run and the accessory position, and even the engine still running. When stuck, the switches could be jostled loose by bumpy roads or by drivers who bump the ignition module and fall out of run position. This action will shut off the engine and passive restraint systems, including airbags, Chrysler said in its statement. Chrysler said dealers will install a new, more robust detent ring in the ignition module to fix the problem. Well, that's all for this edition of Auto Talk. I'm Dave Kenny, and as always, may the wind be at your back as you cruise down life's highways. Stay tuned to Oxford Community Television, and we'll be right back. This is OCTV, Oxford Community Television, serving Oxford and Addison Townships with the best in local programming. On Charter Channel 191, AT&T UVerse Channel 99, and our website, OCCTV.org. OCTV, we provide local programming that brings you closer to home.
Congratulations, OCTV, as the 2014 winner of the American Legion's Best Electronic Media Award, symbolizing your efforts to provide meaningful coverage of veterans issues and patriotic activities, as well as the American Legion.
I'm John Oetjens, and welcome to the Oxford Wildcat School Update. As we cruise into the summer, we're taking a look back at some of the teachers and guests we've spoken with during the past few months and some of the meaningful things they've said. Maggie Dunn was the main speaker at the Oxford Virtual Academy graduation. She and her husband founded the House of Providence in Detroit. That's a home for teenage foster girls. They use the Virtual Academy for their high school courses. She mentioned 4 things to keep in mind as we go through life. Last week we went through the first 2. Here's more.
Find out what you're passionate about. Number 3, be courageous enough to think for yourself. Be courageous enough to think for yourself. It takes courage and diligence to search out truth and think critically. And it's kind of ironic that in higher education, that is not always something that everybody's excited about. They don't want you questioning the norm, if you will. But do it. Do it. When you enter a college classroom, when you enter university, wherever you go from here, think critically and think for yourself. It takes boldness and it takes courage to ask questions and to ask why that is the conclusion if you don't necessarily see it the same way. But take the time and the determination to think for yourself, find your own answers. If you do that, you will have a solid confidence in your decision that's going to be unparalleled by your peers. Because you will know why you agree with or believe what you believe. You don't just accept it because everybody has told you. You know why you believe it. Have the courage to think critically. Lastly, make an impact. Make an impact. That's a purposeful thing. When I was growing up, my dad would tell me everywhere he took me, whether he was taking me to a party or to my job as a grocery bagger. Yes, I bag groceries. He would say, leave there better than you found it, always. If I was going to a party, he would drop me out and say, wait, before you get out, I want you to find one person there that looks like they're not having a good time, maybe doesn't have any friends, and I want you to spend 15 minutes with them. Okay. But those principles go with me. Wherever you go, leave that place, person, situation, environment, leave it better than you found it. Now that can be very minor things when you go into grocery store, you pay for your groceries, somebody seems downcast, leave them better than you found it. Don't get crabby with them, understand who knows what they're going through. Leave it better than you found it. Or your life as a whole, your lifespan, leave the environment of your life better than you found it, wherever you go. I'll leave you with this quote. The measure of life, after all, is not its duration, but its donation. Be so purposeful with the donations you make with your life. Your life is important. Your life is valuable. Your life is full of promise and it matters. And the donations that you give out of your life will make an impact. Be purposeful.
Maggie Dunn of the House of Providence. Later on in Schooling Around, we're going to feature the International Baccalaureate Diploma program that's available to our high schoolers. Katie Getz is the teacher that coordinates the community involvement part of that. Thought you might like a little taste.
So they come in and they interview with me. We talk about what they kind of want to look at as a big, huge project, what they want to spend the majority of their focus on. We have kids right now that are making teddy bears for a pediatric unit at one of the local hospitals. We've had a couple kids come in and say they want to develop a program for the elementary kids. So we had a student go into, I believe it was Clear Lake Elementary School, and started a club, a parkour club. We've had students that did a mission trip in the summer, and they went in and learned about what needs and so forth that this community needed, and came back and did a book drive, and we had one do a toiletry drive, and then raised all the funds to go back and deliver all the toiletries back to the communities that were needed. We had a student raise money for a well system in Kenya. So, you know, these kids come up with these projects on their own and sit there and just talk about what interests them, what they like to do. And then we kind of just start mapping out different ideas about what they could do, and they research, you know, different projects that they'd like to do.
Katie Getz. Watch for that coming up on Schooling Around. Dave Kenny is next with Science in the News, followed by Andy with Sports. This is Oxford Community Television, keeping it local.
I'm Andy Curtis, and this is your Oxford Sports Update. So the Tigers closed out their 4-game home series against the Tampa Bay Devil Rays on Sunday night with a 7-3 loss. Behind the pitching of, at the time, All-Star candidate Rick Porcello, the Tigers only put up 7 hits to Tampa Bay's 19, and Porcello's 25-inning scoreless streak came to an end. Coming into the night's nationally televised game, Slick Rick was boasting back-to-back complete game shutouts and looked like, at least to some of us Detroit fans, to be a shoo-in for a position on the American League's All-Star roster. But this was not to be, even with his 11-5 record, which is among the highest in the American League. Detroit will still be well represented, though, at the Midsummer Spectacular, with, not surprisingly, Miguel Cabrera, Victor Martinez, and Max Scherzer getting chosen to the squad. Now, this is Cabrera's 9th All-Star game and 2nd in a row where he has been voted by the fans to start. The 85th All-Star Game will start at 8 o'clock on Tuesday, July 15th from Target Field in Minneapolis. Now, the Pistons started their Summer League play last week and kept on rolling Sunday with an 85-82 win over the Memphis Grizzlies. Now, this is nothing to get too excited over, with the Summer League rosters being made out of the team's lesser talent, but a potential bright spot was the play of our second-year guard, Contavious Caldwell-Pope, who scored 30 with 12 rebounds and looked like a much-improved player from his first disappointing season with the Stones, where he was popped in and out of the starting lineup. Now we can all go back to ignoring soccer after Team USA was eliminated from the World Cup, losing to Belgium 2-1 last Tuesday. The game went to overtime, tied 0-0 until Belgium went up 2-0 at the 105-minute mark. Then American Julian Green tried to rally with a goal at the 107th minute mark, but this was too little too late. Some bright news from the loss was U.S. goaltender Tim Howard's excellent defensive performance, though, making an astounding 16 saves, the highest amount made by any goalie in the World Cup since 1966. Now, today's sports vocabulary word is fielder's choice. A fielder's choice is when in baseball or softball, the fielder who handles a fair ground ball throws to a base other than first to get the runner out. I'm Andy Curtis, and remember, you can catch all of our broadcasts of your favorite Oxford High School and now Park and Rec League games weekends between 1 and 6 right here on OCTV, or check us out online under the program section of OCCTV.org. And remember, this is your community station, so if you have a sports idea you want to tell us about, shoot me an email at andrewcurtis23@gmail.com and put OCTV Sports in the subject line. That was all the sports news you need to know. Thanks for watching, and have a good day.
You are watching the Michigan American Legion's Station of the Year for the 5th year in a row, Oxford Community Television.
Welcome to Science in the News. I'm Dave Kenny, and these stories are taken from the publication New Scientist. In our first story, hauled from the sea like an oversized jellyfish, this soggy saucer could one day drop humans on the dusty surface of Mars. NASA lifted the donut-shaped airbag high over the Pacific Ocean and then let it fall back to Earth, testing an inflatable system for putting human missions on the red planet. Most successful robot landings have used some combination of parachutes, airbags, and retro-rockets to safely slow the descent from the edge of Mars' thin atmosphere to its rust-colored surface. But human missions will need to bring tens or hundreds of times more mass to the surface in one trip, and existing technologies do not scale up well. The low-density supersonic decelerator is an inflatable system that reduces speed on the way down without adding lots of mass. In its first test flight, NASA lifted the system into the air above a missile range in Hawaii. The craft then used rockets to propel itself to an altitude of 55 kilometers, where atmospheric density is closer to that around Mars, before plummeting into the sea. The flight was meant to test just the rockets, but they performed so well that the team also deployed the saucer-shaped airbag and parachute. The airbag slowed the vehicle from about Mach 4 to Mach 2.5. The supersonic airflow ripped the chute, but the team will try again next year. And in our next story, snap out of it. Those who find themselves daydreaming when they're supposed to be reading a report may soon find a device telling them to pay attention. A detector can now figure out when a person's attention shifts from their task and gets them to focus on it again. People are thought to zone out about 20 to 40% of the time. These instances have been found to result in performance failures, poor memory, recall, and low reading comprehension. To combat the issue, Sidney DeMello and Robert Bixler at the University of Notre Dame in Indiana hit on the idea of making interfaces intelligent enough to spot a user's waning attention and take action. Their software tracks a person's eye movements with a commercial eye tracker. The system figures out if a person's mind is on the task by observing specific features on the way the eyes move, such as how long they fixate on words, where the eyes move next, their overall movement patterns, and other contextual clues. If it thinks the user is no longer concentrating, the system can pause the session, notify the reader, highlight the content, or even display the missed content in a different format. This can lead to improved learning, says DeMello. For high-stakes tasks such as military or aviation, this can prevent catastrophic disasters. The detector could also be used to evaluate study materials on the basis of how well they engage the students. The first version of the mind-wandering detector is expected to be ready in a few months' time. It will be used to develop an intelligent text presentation system that intervenes when it detects a wandering mind. So snap to it. In our next story, giant whirlpools in the ocean up to 500 kilometers across are driving the world's climate on a scale previously unimagined. We just don't know exactly how yet. The bodies of swirling water, called mesoscale eddies, are 100 kilometers to 500 kilometers in diameter. They form when patches of water are destabilized by obstacles like islands. The eddies carry huge volumes of water and heat across the oceans until they slowly stop spinning over days or months and then reintegrate with the surrounding water. The assumption was that they gradually diffused the heat they carried in all directions as they traveled, which would hardly do anything to the climate. Now, for the first time, the amount of water and heat they carry has been measured, and it turns out the eddies have a big effect after all. Bo Chiu at the University of Hawaii in Honolulu and colleagues used satellite data from 1992 to 2010 to spot eddies and floating sensors to map their shapes, volumes, and temperatures. The team found the eddies move as much water as the biggest ocean currents. They mostly move west, driven by the spinning of the Earth. As a result, over 30 million metric tons of water arrive on the east coasts of continents every second. The amount of water they can carry westward was a huge surprise, says Q. It's not clear what this meant for the weather, but it's likely to be significant. Some of the world's biggest sources of climate variability, such as the El Niño Southern Oscillation, are powered by heat moving around the oceans driven by wind and ocean currents. The eddies could have similar effects, says Q, and once we understand them, it should help us create more accurate predictions of the regional effects of climate change. Well, that's it for this edition of Science in the News. I'm Dave Kenny. Stay tuned to Oxford Community Television, and we'll be right back.
You are watching the Michigan American Legion's Station of the Year for the 5th year in a row. Oxford Community Television.